Not today, I really have to confess. The temperature went up over 40 degrees and I was itching to take a ride. But common sense got the best of me. There's just too much ice and snow everywhere. But I did want to share something that I think is really important. And it may be that there are other bikes that are exactly like this, but this is an 89. It's a Kawasaki GPX 750R, and it has a switch that I'm sure is common to a lot of other bikes. The way this switch is supposed to work is when you let the clutch out, it knows that it's in gear, and it doesn't let you start the bike when it's in gear unless you have the clutch in. So it's a 3-prong switch. I don't know what the logic of how they do that into the it goes into the ignition box, but when that switch goes bad, and on this case after 26 years that switch did go bad, and I was chasing my tail for a long time. We finally did, with the help of Luciano and a couple other people that gave me feedback, we have a resolve on it. Now, since I have a donor bike, a spare bike, it was very easy. I just took the switch off of the other master cylinder, put it onto the green bike, and found out the same exact thing happened. So in essence, what I had was 2 bad switches. And now this is the switch here, just to make this a very simple thing. One screw holds it on, and then there's a little pin that catches. But what happens with this switch, it tells the engine that you either have the clutch in or the clutch out. And when this switch goes bad, which two of the 2 I had went bad, again, they're old switches. First thing I did, I took it all apart, cleaned it, and it was filthy inside. Cleaned it all up with electrical parts, cleaned it, put it back, put it on a bike, didn't cure the problem. So what I did, I went to Luciano's house. Luciano had 2 of these. One was the exact right one. One was that the bolts were just a little bit different. It could have been adapted, but, and again, this is probably still available from Kawasaki, but it's nice if you can do it with spare parts. But when this switch on any bike goes bad, this is what the symptom is you let the clutch out, and right in the 2 areas, there's 3 contact points in here, and right at some point in time when it wears, you get to a point where it basically shuts the engine off. And if you do it real quick, like you would do at a drag race, you just rev the engine and let it out, it's fine. But as it goes through that spot, it'll be right at a spot where you're letting the clutch out, and it'll shut the engine off. So it was really annoying. Not something you couldn't work around, but several times in the middle of a ride, it would just give me an indication that it would shut the engine off. And it would be fine for an hour or so, and then you'd be at a light, you let the clutch out, and it shut the engine off. And it really got annoying. But anyway, this is a switch Luciano gave me. Basically cures the problem. But what happened to me originally, and this is the tip I wanted to pass on. This is a really, really significant tip. When that switch goes bad, and I want to try to get under there with the camera and show where that switch is. Now, what I did to solve the problem, if you're out on the road and when that switch fails, you can't get home. Well, what I did, I took the switch, it's got 1 screw, 1 Phillips screw holding it, and just put a piece of tape. I always have a roll of tape in my pocket. Just taped it to the master cylinder here. See, this is the part that when the clutch would normally go in and out. Well, what that did, it tricked the bike into thinking the clutch isn't ever being used. So in essence, the bike ran fine. But what I've done, by not having that hooked up, it gets you home. It's like a spare tire. But the downside is now the bike could be started in gear. And obviously that's not a good thing. So today's job is to replace the switch with the new one, the relatively new one. Nothing we have here is new. Everything is relatively new. And then even today, hopefully, and it's, even though it's about 35 degrees, and as you can see, there's still a lot of snow on the ground, I'm going to take a quick ride locally and just make sure that that the problem is solved. So everything is perfect as long as that switch is not, the plunger on the switch is not connected. But again, right now the problem would be if you were just not paying attention, you could start the bike in gear. So by jury rigging this, I've eliminated one of those safety features, like the kickstand being up, that you can't start the bike. Now, other bikes might be similar, but believe me, this drove me crazy for a while because I had thought, and this is where this switch is wired in, and I had thought originally when this started, this little gremlin started to appear, I thought, oh boy, we got a carburetor that's clogged up, or a fuel line, or a bad set of plugs, and I usually maintain everything. I mean, there's nothing on this gets under-maintained, that's for sure. But when I spoke to Luciano, and we kind of determined that it was this switch, and luckily he had one, boy, that saved my whole day. And again, this unplugs right out. But now you'll notice something. If for instance, you're on a ride, switch goes bad, now what happens? The bike won't start. This bike is not going to start now, no matter what I do. So it's not going to be of any value to, where'd the wire go now? I lost the wire. To just, if it goes bad, pull it off, because when that circuit's broken, this bike doesn't start. So what does work, though, to get yourself home from a ride, and this is the bullet of this whole little video, is take the switch off the bike, just like this. Leave it connected, and you probably could even just not tape it up here, I'm just thinking. Because now you have a closed circuit that allows you to get home. It actually allows you to ride the bike, and the only feature you've lost is that bike will start in gear now, which is, I'm not sure if you're a new rider or whatever, that you really don't want to eliminate that. So what I wanted to do here, and it's kind of simple, I wanted to demonstrate what this problem looks like when these switches do go bad. It's real easy to do. What I did, I put the bad switch, one of the two bad switches on the bike that was there. Now what will happen is, as that switch starts to go bad and you let the clutch out, it's going to shut the engine off. And that's and it doesn't stall the bike out. It just shuts it off because you're in those three contacts. There's some combination of the contacts that's not making a good contact. So the cure now is, obviously, I'm going to put the good switch back on, put the bike back together, and hopefully by passing that information on, it might save you having to be towed home. Just to show and I wanted to show every part of this job. There's only one screw holds the switch in. It's usually almost always located underneath the master cylinder on most of the bikes I've ever worked on. One screw holds it on. Don't drop it. And this we know is the bad switch, and it's in this plunger mechanism that something either shorts out or is not happy or whatever, but by just replacing this switch. Now, it's nice in the case of if you have a friend has the exact same bike, before you go buy the switch for whatever these things cost, I'm sure they're not $3, take the switch off his bike and try it. If it cures the problem, well, you know, you got it. That's it. But sometimes diagnosing this can be really a lot more difficult than you think, especially on an old bike here. The dealers don't have parts sitting on the shelf for 40-year-old bikes or 30-year-old bikes all the time. So anyway, but this is the little culprit. And another thing on the basically all bikes now, they have a switch that if the side stand isn't up, you can just jury rig that, pull the wires out and twist them together to get home or until you replace it or adjust it. But I had heard from Ray Straub, he was on a ride with his SV650 and that switch either didn't make the connection or made the connection or whatever, and it basically shuts the bike off and you can't get it started. And so another thing to be aware of, most modern bikes, if you tip them over or drop them and you pick them straight up, they don't really restart right away. You got to take the key out and they reset somehow. Most of them do anyway. But anyway, I hope by seeing how easy this is to replace, it'll just make maybe save you some money, some time, some effort. And here at the A-Team, this is the kind of information I like to share, because anybody can replace this switch. Now all that's left is just to make sure, before we head out for a little test ride, And this would be exactly the thing, right at it to shut the engine off. And I thought originally, the original thing I thought was that I was having some air in the, this is a hydraulic clutch. I bled it, put new fluid in, didn't do anything. And I was really beside myself. This was hard for me to diagnose. Not hard for Luciano, maybe not hard for you, but by passing the information on. Oh, I'm ready to ride. By passing the information on, sharing it, and that there's always a switch on a kickstand. There's things on these bikes that if you're not aware of them, even if you are aware of them, and you get the wrong diagnosis. So again, I really just hope that was a good tip. And boy, here's another tip that's worth its weight in gold. I had never done this before, but I had gotten a flat tire. I went to get the snowblower ready for this big storm that we just had, and the tire was totally flat. And I had called Luciano again, who told me, go get the slime. Get this stuff from AutoZone called slime. Just put it in a tire, put air in it, spin it around a few times, it'll be fine. Well, that's, since the day I did that, never lost any air. So I'm not sure, now I'm going to have to find this out. I'm not sure you can have that as a fix for a motorcycle tire, but it's called slime, and it works great on snow blowers too. Anyway, that's the whole objective of everything we do, to share the information and share the passion we have for building snowmen and riding motorcycles. Now, just as I'm done shooting the footage for this video, I hear a bunch of noise out here, and it's the UPS man. Look how lucky we are. Look at that. There's the brand new tire for the green wheel right there. Oh yes. Wow. Are we lucky or what? Now the last thing we're going to get done today is just take a look. We got every part of this ready for, that'll be the next time we get to do a work day. The sprocket's all cleaned up. Vlad's stuff is again ready to be picked up, but it's a problem because we've had so much snow, difficult for him to get here. And just having that tire in-house, that's going to change the way we schedule work for the next week. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and as I always say, thanks for watching.